I'm totally afraid. I'm afraid of everything. I'm afraid of losing. I'm afraid of being humiliated. But I'm totally confident. The closer I get to the ring, the more confidence I get. The closer, I'm more confident.
The new definition of confidence. Confidence is the willingness to try.
My confidence comes from both my faith and in the fact that I keep promises I make to myself.
Borrow confidence from the past.
Confidence. Confidence. Confidence.
Confidence. Confidence.
Confidence. Confidence.
Out of state and international. Right there. Then you'll see the averages, but we like to focus on the middle age to give you the spectrum that exists in the class. So 26 to 32 years of age, 3 to 8 years of work experience, and then you'll see the test scores. We don't have a preference on test score. Really take the test that you're going to do your best on. So GMAT, GRE, and then GPA. We do something interesting is we'll recalculate a GPA for you based off of your last 2 years or through your upper division coursework in undergrad. Now, if anyone here has a master's degree, that master's degree GPA will also roll in to a recalculated GPA. But you'll see the range of 3 to 3.8 for that middle age. Question?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Is there a difference between GRE and GMAT in terms of the type of industry you want to get into? Like, do some industries care about test grades from, like, say, GMAT or GRE versus the other one?
Yeah, some of the top firms in consulting, in let's say investment banking, maybe finance, will prefer GMAT score only because they're trying to compare apples to apples across MBA programs. So that's one way for them to do it. But I would say for anyone who, I think GRE, because it's becoming more MBA schools are taking the GRE score, that I would say firms are also starting to understand what that means. So I would say if you're a solid candidate, I don't think you're going to have a problem. Firms need to like evolve and look at something else than GMAT. That's just me.
Okay.
That's personal.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, all right. Then you'll see where people are coming from in terms of pre-MBA industry, and I like to think of it as a balanced classroom, if you will. So you're always going to have some diverse perspectives there. Who's going to say something next?
Jaden, sorry I interrupted there. So
no, you're good.
Question on the GPA. So the average GPA there is for the full undergrad program, but when you guys look at it, maybe as far as considering applicants, you look at the last 2 years specifically.
Mm-hmm, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I had a question actually in regards to that as well. I'm actually finishing school now. I'm 29. I did my first 2 years when I was 18, 19.
Yeah.
And then worked in between, and I'm in my last year now.
Yeah.
And like my grades freshman year were not great, but I gotten straight A since then. Just in terms of how do they look at that?
Yeah. So we don't have many applicants that do it that way. So, I mean, there really isn't we would just look at your current GPA, look at your current work experience. Actually, that's a good transition over to the application process. So why don't I go ahead and talk a little bit about that? And so your question may get answered within this discussion. No, so with the application, we kind of divide it up into 3 different buckets. So that first bucket is your academic background. So that's test score, your transcripts. We're going to look at those. And even if you went to school internationally, we're going to look at your transcripts. Obviously, we're not going to calculate a GPA, but we will look at them to see how you performed. Second is your work experience. Work experience is, danger. Here, let me take this away. Danger. So for your work experience, the way I calculate it is your impact, results, and leadership. Impact, results, and leadership, both on the job, right? And so how do you communicate that? How do you quantify that on your resume, on a one-page resume? And sometimes when we look at resumes, it really is just articulating what you're doing on a day-to-day kind of role versus like giving us bullet points that really talk about you at your best. Right. And so that's just something to think about when you look at your resume. Second is that letter of recommendation, ideally from a current supervisor. Obviously, there are some of you who may be applying, but your supervisor doesn't know, which we completely understand. You can use a previous supervisor for that. And again, that impact results in leadership is going to be important in that space too. So specificity is important, and preparing to write that is also going to be necessary. So is it a review of how great you are or how great you were for that previous, so it just depends on who you have write it. We're also not looking for a title, where our community is known for being collaborative and supportive. And title doesn't really have any weight. During review of your application, what we're looking for, again, are those examples that show you at your best. Some people will have like the president of a company, even though they don't really have any engagement with that person. So again, a current supervisor, someone who's working along or closely with you is the best person. So that's the second bucket, which is work experience. And then lastly is the connection between you, your goals, and us. So having clear goals is like a secret sauce. And then also first essay is just they start with, how does it go again? We're going to learn a lot about you from your resume and letter of recommendation. Please introduce yourself. So it's already kind of taking the work out of the picture. You can talk a little bit about it. But what I always have people think about is you have limited real estate to communicate your story. And so I would hesitate to re-articulate something that we've already learned, because now we're not learning anything more about you. It's so just think about who you are outside of work. What are your passions? Anything that's going to kind of complete who you are. That's the please introduce yourself. Then the second essay is imagine yourself at graduation and what did you do with your time here? And this is really focused on your goals and what you're going to get in, your involvement at McCombs. It's going to be focused on, things that you did, everything from study abroad, student organizations, fellow programs, faculty members that you connect with. And then if you want to go above and beyond, it's like, how did you impact? Like, how did you leave it better than when you found it? Then lastly, we have a third optional essay. This is really for anyone who has some concerns about their application. Either there's a gap in employment, is it the choice of letter recommender, is it a GPA or test score issue? Just go ahead and drop it in. You can drop in a few sentences. We're not looking for a novel, just a quick highlight of why.
Hey, Jaden, I've got a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
For those who are trying to, I guess, for lack of a better term, sneak in and get an application in the rolling deadline right now, with everything going on, and if an applicant had applied and received the waiver on test scores, will that put an applicant at a disadvantage? And I guess in that situation, would you recommend filling out that third essay to give a little bit more clarity as to why you may have pursued that option?
Yeah, I mean, you could also do like a why now. I guess that's one way, especially when you're later in a cycle. The why now, it may not come across easily. So yeah, you could use that third essay for something like that. Obviously, we know about the waiver because there's another form for that. But if you really wanted to focus on why now, that would be a good place to do that. Yeah. And then for anyone who is applying now with the waiver, obviously we'll be looking at everything else with more intensity. So is it transcripts, is it work experience, and letter of rec? So we're going to be looking at other things. So that's a really good question. Thanks, Chris. Good. Then lastly is the interview. And so interview is important. It brings it all together, if you will. And this is also something else. Not everything has to fit on your resume, since the interview is also there. So again, you can tell some more stories and put some more bullet points, or just share the stories. So good. So that's application in a nutshell. But let's see how we're doing with. Okay, time is good. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and look at this chat for things people wanted to learn. Global immersion experience, we talked about that. MBA Plus and fellow programs, we talked about that. How choosing a core concentration works and how much flexibility. As you can tell, we have lots of flexibility. Grant said, what did Grant say? Oh. Supply chain management, perfect. Social impact investing. Yes, we do have a social impact investing initiative, social impact initiative, something like that. Now I totally blanked out. But then Net Impact also started a social impacting arm too. That's a brand new. Clean tech program. Okay. Yeah, so clean tech is going to be, I would suggest, we just had an alumni panel yesterday, and the person who created the clean tech group, is a 2009 grad, he was just on there and just talking about his career. So, but yeah, clean tech program's great in terms of the fellows. I would say if you really want to connect with a student, the best way to do that is email Texas MBA at mccombs.utexas.edu and just say, hey, I'd like to connect with a clean tech person. And then the students who look at that email will connect you. Yeah, there's quite a few. So, okay, other questions? Feel free to ask.
You just mentioned about the clean tech program and how it was a member from the class of 09 who started it. Is there avenues, if there's like a functional area within the fellows program or elsewhere, maybe a student group is the better avenue for it, but is there avenues to like start maybe a potential fellows program, or would it be like if there's a functional area that you think that you could add value by bringing it on?
I'm sorry, I was about to start coughing, and so I had to go mute. And then, so say that question again. Like, so if you wanted to start a new venture, a new fellows program, is it possible?
Is that a possibility, or
Yes.
are those kind of set in stone and it's more of a student group that you pursued it to start?
Yeah, so yeah, you can begin to draft something up, and you would probably need to be connected to a department or faculty person who would kind of take that on. So yeah, it is possible.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, I had a question. I guess with everything going on kind of in the same line as my last question, are you anticipating, I know you mentioned some of the international programs, there might be some changes as a result of the sort of current environment. Are you anticipating any other changes in the next, whether it be for the fall semester or for the next academic year? Mm-hmm. Just a little curious as to what you might be looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so everything is still unknown. I know that the institution is going to be releasing their plan in late June for us about what the re-entry to online, on campus, whatever it looks like, what it's going to be. We're just as much in the dark as you are. There's actually a COVID updates. I think every institution now has that COVID updates thing on their website, and what you see there is what we know. So it's a level playing field in terms of what that looks like. Other things would be, obviously global is going to be looking completely different or non-existent, and that's going to be across institutions. So there may be obviously opportunities to do some virtual kind of connections within a global environment, and working with because one of our or several of our groups work with startups or entrepreneurs in other countries, and that could still probably happen. Obviously, it's going to look completely different, but Just something. Other questions? And if I missed a component, just let me know. Other questions?
Hey, Jaden, I had a question. Unique consideration probably for most, but for people coming with spouses, what does McCombs do? Try to help them feel included and get involved.
Yeah, good one. Yes, I always forget that one. So we have Partners Club, and then we call them Cohort 5.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. And we just did it's called McCombs Ambassador Committee, and so anyone who's interacted or had coffee chats previous to today, those are students who volunteer their time to give you perspective. But they just did a shout out during yesterday's send off for all the Cohort 5, and actually some of them were in the shot, and like we're there drinking and sharing stories too. So they are full members of the community for sure.
Great.
Yeah, and we just did a preview week. So we did like Monday through Friday series of events, and we had sessions specifically for partners as well. And typically when we're in person, we also talk about what does it look like to do a job search in Austin, if that's the case. And so Career will do some coaching for them as part of that.
Very helpful. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. I was going to pull up that career report and send it to y'all. Any other questions while I pull the PDF link?
Hi, Jaden. I just had a couple of questions. You spoke earlier about the recommendations. But what are some of the key attributes that you would like to see recommenders address about you as a candidate? Like I've heard people say, for instance, how you take feedback is one thing they'd like to see, or how you've grown through your career. Is there anything in particular that will pique the committee's ears?
Yeah. So the feedback one is actually, there's a specific question about feedback. So that's just built in already, but really it's about, like I said, impact, results, and leadership. Some people will be very general. Let's say, Matu is a great team player. He's highly analytical and has great technical skills. Okay, well, that's great. But can I get examples about demonstrating those? And that's like with anything, like even when you're writing a paper, right? And you need to give some specifics or even cite some research about why your claim is important. So I just want to understand, if your person who's writing your letter of recommendation is making a claim, then give me some supportive facts about that.
Just a follow-up to that, our second part to that question is, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see candidates make in their application?
Oh, I love this. I was writing a list at one point about all mistakes. It was a long one. Just joking. Common mistakes are trying to recycle an application or essays. It is so obvious. Because our essays are so unique that it's really obvious when people try to recycle an essay. One, it's like because it's flowing, and all of a sudden it makes like a hard pivot to like McCombs, and it's like this is comes out of nowhere. The other day I just talked about what that was, and someone in the chat was like, "Oh my gosh, that's how I wrote mine." And I was like, "Thanks, one first. Thank you for being honest and sharing with everyone who was on that call about." You're probably the person who I was writing about, or talking about. Second is when you forget to take out the school you're applying to, like another school that you're applying to in the actual essay, which typically comes because you probably do a control find but you spelled the school name wrong, and so then it stays in there. So that's great. Letter of recommender will often cite the school too, and then just copy and paste that for all schools. So that's one way. Other problem, or not doing research, not following the essay prompt at all, and just kind of writing your own thing. That's not good. Connecting to research, but just not knowing, just not sharing your why McCombs. in an interview, for instance. Actually, a student just talked about they were in an interview. So they're in the Macomb's interview, and it was like a student interviewing them. And the person said, "So what's it like here at Darden, or there at Darden?" And they're like, "Oh, wrong school." I know the Darden folks, great people.
They got the colors. The colors kind of. I went to Florida for undergrad, and I have family. My sister went to UT Austin.
Yeah.
So there's always that crosstalk between with the colors confusing the parents. So
Grant says, "Go Gators."
Yeah. Go Gators. I also went to Michigan for grad school too. So
wonderful. Go Blue. Yeah, I don't have any Michigan stuff on any of my things. I had to take it off. It is on my refrigerator though. Okay, we have about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure I get to your questions. Oh, I need to pull up this this PDF.
Hey, Jaden.
Yep, go ahead.
You mentioned the interview, and I was curious: is that would it be with like alumni that you were mentioning? Is that kind of how the interview process works?
Yeah. So interview typically, we'll talk about normal state first. Normal state would be most of them are done by current students. Second is alumni, and then we round it out with the AOs, the admissions officers. This cycle, like what's happening right now is AOs and maybe a few students. Alumni are out of the picture just because they're dealing with all everything else, so we don't need to complicate their world. So we're jumping in. Like, how many? I have two. Actually, after this call, I have two interviews. I think I've done like 12 this week. Go ahead, William.
Are the students, are they a part of the MAC that do those interviews?
Say that again. It kind of sounded muffled.
Are the students that do the interviewing, are they a part of the MAC? Is that where those?
Yes, yeah. So they're all Macombs Ambassador Committee members. That's what MAC, MAC. We call them MACers.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Jaden, just to follow on off that interview question, what's the hardest part of the process? I know sometimes just getting through the initial admission stage is the toughest, and then it's like 50-50 when you get to the interview. How many people make it past the initial part to the interview?
Ooh. What is our stats? I don't remember the stat right off the top of my head, but I've heard them say that we probably do we don't interview everyone, so it isn't invite to interview, but let's say, I'm guessing, let's say 40%. Is how many we'll interview? I don't know. Actually, we just shared the data out yesterday, and it was something like 800 interviews. So maybe that was just for the students. So that wouldn't have included alumni or even AO interviews that we do. And typically AO interviews, we'll do them, we'll call them hub interviews where we'll travel. But obviously with travel bans and such, we are not traveling. So I did just drop the career report in the chat. So if you're interested in that career report, feel free to pull it up, save the link, download it, whatever you want. Okay, so any other questions?
What would you say is the number one thing that differentiates Macombs from the other top business schools?
Yeah, so I would say it's our collaborative environment and the way we support each other. And the reason why that's a differentiator is because to be able to navigate innovation and change as a team and as a company, you're going to need to collaborate with others, right? So we think that through our program that you'll be better prepared for navigating change. And, again, it goes back to that human-centered, future-focused approach, that you'll be better prepared to do that. So, yeah. Then the other thing is, second is just being in Austin. Once it's get normal state, just being close to things that are happening. You don't have to travel far to be able to connect with industry leaders and thought leaders. Any other questions? I was just thinking another thing about it is, this, if you have an idea, the program office supports students in ways that I think all the students appreciate. So.
Another question I'll ask is, let's say a candidate is trying to still discover ultimately what they want to take out of their business school experience. How do you, like I've heard, again, the word vulnerability used a lot by admissions directors, but does that expressing that vulnerability in your application, that maybe you are interested in entrepreneurship, but maybe you're also interested in like understanding how volatile and how difficult entrepreneurship can be? Maybe you're also kind of thinking of an option 1B as well. Do you want to see that thought process in an application, or are you trying to see a more cohesive, story as far as, hey, this is why I'm seeking to get an MBA?
Yeah. My suggestion is to have a cohesive focus in your application. I mean, because we also have to figure out, okay, well, what's your path? I think every program is going to think about, okay, well, how do they fit in to our program, and what are they going to do? Because if you only have so much time, so you can't spin your wheels. I mean, really, because you start networking right when you get here, and if you're still spinning your wheels and haven't really done the research or done case prep, let's say difference between consulting and entrepreneurship, I mean, so you have to come in with a focus, or you're going to find yourself stressed as you come to the end of your first year, even if it's really trying to find an internship. Because at the end of the day, you only have so much energy to expend. And if you're trying to do everything and then you're not really doing anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I only ask because I know you hear stories of students who come in saying that they have this focus, and then they ultimately change. They're in the MBA. So I just wonder how much of that self-discovery. Do you still expect people to show that cohesive? Hey, this is what I want to do. Yep. Understanding that they may change as they're going through the program.
Yeah, because people do change, but having focus at least communicates that you know what the opportunities are for a specific path, and if you decide to change, then that's fine. You just have to hustle a little bit harder to be able to make that happen. And the pre-MBA stuff is happening right now, and so for some people, because you only know what you know, and so for some communities, having this experience in conversations, like even on our Teams channel, is a great way for you to discover what's out there. So that's why these pre-MBA opportunities exist, is to gain exposure. But again, this is still pre-start of classes. So I remember there's an alum who thought she was going to come and doing consulting, and then she discovered investment banking, and now that's what she's doing. But again, this would all happen pre-start of class. Cool. So 3 minutes left. Last question, or I have another poll for y'all.
Jaden, there is one more question in the chat from Niccolo Bicelli, I think his name is.
Yeah. What kind of volunteer experience? Oh, yeah, volunteer experience. It looks different for different people, because sometimes the nature of the work is they haven't been able to. So some folks will say, I wish I was more involved. It could be some people sit on boards of nonprofits. Some are active doing Habitat for Humanity. Some give back to a fraternity or sorority. It just looks different for different people. And you can just communicate it. I don't think it looks one way for all. Yeah. Are there internship? Yes. Opportunities for international students. Yeah. Yeah, the OTP. So for us, OTP, because our internships are required as part of the program. So it's OTP doesn't factor into our internship program because it's a requirement. So somehow it's a differently processed. Cool. So I put up this last chat just for me to know is what do you want to learn more about in the future? So it's more student life, obviously career. Yeah, and I think that career report I just shared out is probably going to answer a lot of your questions. So it's like, I remember how many pages, it's long. I just kind of zoom through it as I'm on Zoom. That was it, anyways. All right, well, cool. Well, thank you all so much. If there's no more questions, I think we are all set. I look forward to seeing you all later today. I don't know if anyone's going to be on the info session later today, but I'll talk about all this again. Hopefully not, because then it might be, some of it might be repetitive, unless there's some new questions, which not. Cool. All right, y'all. Well, hopefully see you virtually very soon. Until next time, hook 'em. And then that's Rolling Hall. That's typically where, we would post things too. You can see it. Oh, it's probably the wrong way. It's a nice building.
Beauty.
All right, y'all. Take it easy.
Thanks, Jaden.
Thank you.
There's a difference. I want to do it and I want to be a rock star, right? And that's where you influence people. I want to do it, but I also want to be the most popular. And so then that person's like, oh, I want to be him. So I guess I'll be nice. I want to literally take people who have DNA that's kind of nice and make them more nice